Well, hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone listening in to tonight's broadcast of VORW Radio International, the voice of the report of the week, getting out to you this Thursday, the 18th of June, 2026. This program is transmitted to you on the international shortwave frequency of 9740 kHz. Broadcast from Taiwan with 300 kilowatts of power for listeners in East Asia. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope everyone out there listening in is feeling and doing all right, and I wish you good reception conditions. Is everybody here? Have we all made it successfully to this new frequency of 9740 kilohertz? I hope so. I hope everyone at least is in attendance. If not, make sure you inform anyone that doesn't know, whether they might be your friends, your family, if it's someone over in the next village, if it's members of your DX club or shortwave listening club, that VORW Radio International's broadcast has moved frequencies. Not too far, we are still right here in the 31-meter band, but we have moved frequencies from 9705 kilohertz to 9740 kilohertz. So we went from 9705 to 9740 kilohertz. And I would like to explain for a moment why I made this change, particularly if, say, you don't tune in every week. Likewise, I'm also going to be using this program more or less as a means for all of us, shall we say, to get settled in to our new home here on this new frequency. So this program is merely going to allow for listeners the opportunity to successfully get their receivers retuned, to find this broadcast on its new frequency. Next week we are finally going to be getting back to normal operations. Again, same time, same transmitter power, same antenna beam, same everything, just a different frequency. But today's program is mostly going to be, as I said, a means to simply get settled in. I want to explain why this change was made, and then the rest of the broadcast will consist of some music that I will be picking out, and I think I'll also play some music from the North American broadcast of my program. And then next week's program, once I'm sure everyone out there will have successfully found this new frequency, we will get back to our listener requests from our listeners all across East Asia and beyond. But anyway, I began getting reports immediately because for those of you who are regular listeners, I'm sure you can tell that we do indeed have quite a responsive audience of listeners all over the world. As a matter of fact, during the last several shows, especially in the month of June, we actually began each program with a mailbag segment where we actually took a look at some of the listener correspondence that has come in, and there are all manner of folks tuned in, very casual listeners in parts of the world where shortwave broadcasts still have substantial casual listenership. There are very serious listeners who send very formal and detailed reception reports. There are listeners who tune in on very sophisticated radio setups, and there are listeners that simply tune in on basic portable radio sets or an old boombox or anything in between. And I also know there are many listeners out there who likely tune in each and every week that haven't internet access and haven't the means to correspond with this broadcast directly. I know there are listeners out there that hear the signal, receive the broadcast, but can't let me know. I always take that into account too. But I began getting emails immediately last week from listeners saying, there is a station broadcasting now on 9700 kHz that is heavily interfering with your broadcast. Mind you, I am both a broadcaster and a listener. So when I take the time to plan out these transmissions, I take into account very significantly interference, especially co-channel interference, that being from broadcasters on the same frequency at the same time. I make every effort to avoid that at all costs, because if you think about it, if you have two stations trying to talk over each other, no one benefits from that, and it's going to sound horrible. But I also take into account being very close to another strong signal. Because even if you are on two different frequencies, but you're only separated by a couple kilohertz, the audio from both of those broadcasts is still going to bleed into each other, going to interfere with each other, and it is going to result in an unpleasant listening experience for both stations.